And there we go, everyone. We are back again for another fantastic conversation on Friday Night Counter Attack. And as you know, this podcast is for the podcast for everyone listening to the Premier League preview. And when we get a preview for a season or for a trophy or for a championship, there's only one man we can call. And the one man we're calling today is obviously the one who you listened to on the World Cup preview and last season's Premier League preview. Yes, it is. It's Mr. Toni Afoke from TalkSport. Tony, it's good to see you again, my friend. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me. That was a really cool intro. I appreciate that, but thank you for having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
You're very welcome. I'm looking forward to it. Someone who's really big on intros, someone who's bigger and better than me in any type of intro is Sani, the sports guy. So, Sani, it's good to have you back, my friend. I'm waiting for your intro. How are you doing?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. It's an absolute pleasure to be here on a Monday night. It's not a Tuesday night in Stoke, but listen, Monday night, Friday night counter attack. It's going to be special, and that's what it's all about, baby.
That is all it is. I mean, I've got football tomorrow, so I can actually do it on a Tuesday night in Stoke. I've been going back to football this summer, and I'm looking forward to seeing how I can do on a rainy night in Stoke, which would be good fun. And obviously, we've got Sam back again. Sam, it's good to have you back, my friend. Thank you for filling the diversity quota for this week's podcast. I'm not talking about your skin color, so I don't want anyone laughing about it. I'm talking about the fact that we've got 3 Manchester United fans and 1 Chelsea fan for this Premier League preview. So we are a bit unbiased today, so it's perfectly fine. How are you doing today, Sam?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I'll do my best to hold up the Chelsea end of the conversation today, but we'll see how it goes.
Inclusivity and diversity. That's what we're all about here on Friday Night Counter Attack, including everyone, even Chelsea fans on our Friday Night Counter Attack. The only time I've spoken more about Chelsea is when you're actually on the podcast. So it's going to be a good thing that we're going to be learning about Pochettino and your new signings as well, Sam. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we've got, really, which will be good fun. But Tony, we're going to start off with you. We're going to start off with how everything's kind of going from basically Manchester United's perspective. Obviously working in the media, obviously seeing some of these new signings that we've had come in. Looks like Rasmus Højlund is all but certain. Andre Onana being our new goalkeeper. The departure of David De Gea. What have you made of Erik ten Hag and Manchester United's summer transfer dealing so far this summer?
Honestly, this has been probably, and I know we still got a lot to go in the window, but this has been a very good transfer for Man United, transfer windows so far for Man United fans. And the reason I'm saying this is because it's not of like the players in particular, because I feel like there's still some questions in some players, and we can get into that a little bit on. But I feel like we've improved in 3 areas we lacked massively. And we've improved 3 of our weaknesses. So whether we like it or not, I feel like we're going to see a better Man United team. For those that watch United, we can all talk about De Gea and how jarring he was to watch at times, and how he should have left 3-4 years ago, and how it kind of happened, because all throughout the season, Ten Hag was like, "This is my number one. This is my guy." And the next thing you know, Man United give him a contract, and Ten Hag's like, "You know what? I can't do this anymore." So we didn't handle it well, but now we're replacing with him with Andre Onana. That's that goalkeeper bit sorted. That's that playing out of the back sorted to an extent with the goalkeeper. We don't have to see De Gea as a press trigger anymore. There were so many times that De Gea would have the ball, he'll be knowing around it, and we're just giving the ball back to the opposition. So that weakness is gone. In regards to the midfield, I still don't like the midfield, but we can talk about that later on. But the fact that Eriksen was our go-to next to Casemiro last season, and Eriksen was basically non-existent defensively, we've now put Mason Mount in there. That weakness is gone, and then now we have a striker. And I think the striker one is massive, because we only scored 58 goals in the Prem last season, and that was the lowest out of the top 6. But we finished 3rd, and we only finished 9 points behind Arsenal. So having a striker now, and one thing I've noticed from watching pre-season is that when we play the Sancho team, him playing false 9, and then we play someone like Joe Hugo up front, like we scored at the start of the preseason, we scored a lot of goals just because we had a striker figure there. It wasn't even the striker figure scoring, but you could see with the way we were trying to play how vital it is to have a striker figure there. So as I said, with Rasmus Højlund, he's going to be a massive impact on United, not even because of the goals, because everyone's like, oh gosh, 70 million, he's only scored 6 goals, whatever. But the fact that we now have an out-and-out number 9 there, and not even just someone who wants to stay in the box, someone who can kind of play football as well, from what I've watched of him, Man United are going to look like a much better team. So we've improved in those massive 3 areas, and we've still got another month in the transfer window. Now, if we get rid of some players, I feel like this could be one of the best transfer windows we've had in a long time. And it's not, as I said, it's not down to the particular players. It's just down to what he's done with the team and how we've improved. And I feel like we're going to see an improvement from last season.
Yeah, I would say so as well. Sani, how about your thoughts? Obviously, you went home and away last season to watch Man United men's and women's teams last season. Are you looking forward to seeing how Man United will actually play with a proper number 9, or do you think with Rasmus Højlund he may have to kind of differ in and out of the team because he is still kind of raw? Is now the number 9 for Denmark, which goes to show how much they put faith in him. Atlanta, he was obviously the number 9, but also played out as a winger. What's your kind of thoughts on how Erik ten Hag will start this season? Will he go for that false 9 of Jadon Sancho, or will he go for the Rasmus Højlund from game 1 against Wolverhampton? What do you think?
No, of course. It's definitely an interesting question. Before we even get into it, just like The Rock said when he finally returned to WWE Monday Night Raw, finally, Man United have a 9. Listen, it feels good to finally have a striker for Manchester United. And a striker, by the way, who's under the age of 25. Now, people might be thinking, what's this ageism debate going on here? But since Van Persie left, every striker we've had has been, of a striker that's kind of in their peak or just past their peak. So having a striker who's young is really important. Someone that can run down the channels finally, after so many years, is going to be great to see at Old Trafford, even away from home as well. And like Tony was saying, the key thing that Ten Hag has identified this summer transfer window is profiles. Profiles is something that Ten Hag loved when he was at Ajax. And now when he's at Manchester United, he identified a player last season in Frankie de Jong. Fine, we didn't get him, but it was profiles he was looking at. So the profile of player is the most important thing. And whether that, gets us higher in the table remains to be seen. But just looking at last season, for example, when it came to XG, for example, we were 6th. We had the same amount of goals as Brentford. We had the second most big chances missed. In terms of chances just missed in general, forget about big chances, we were 3rd. So we had so many chances, but nobody was putting them in the back of the net. Now, of course, we had Ronaldo, we had Weghorst, even Rashford sometimes play down the 9. But we finally have a striker now, although he's young, who can play that 9. And we need that. We need that focal point. And that will help players like Sancho, like Anthony, even Garnacho, Pellistri, Rashford, ease that burden, because you can't expect those players to get you 10 league goals, for example. I'm not saying Højlund's going to come in and score 20 for us, but he can ease that burden, which is going to be massive for us in the new season.
Yeah, Rasmus Højlund is the youngest striker for Man United since Anthony Martial back in 2015-16 season as well. And again, that was Louis van Gaal. Yeah, even then he played as a left winger as well, which is crazy to think. But it's just like you said, we've always been linked with like older people, not so much has-beens, but older strikers who we can get in for short-term fix. And finally looks like we've got a long-term fix as well. A team that's gone all out in terms of long-term fixes is Chelsea, really, isn't it, Sam? I mean, you've been very impressed with Nicholas Jackson so far in pre-season. You've been impressed with Pochettino. From the outside in, 2 questions for you. Are you more excited about seeing Pochettino as your manager? And do you think Pochettino can finish higher than Erik ten Hag for Chelsea and Manchester United this season? What do you think, sir?
Well, yeah, firstly, obviously, we've made some positive inroads into the squad, considering how many players we had at the end of last season. We let ourselves down a cul-de-sac having 30-odd players in the squad, and it was so difficult for any of the managers that we had to actually rotate those players and keep them all happy, keep them in a system that worked. So for Pochettino, it's become a lot easier now. He's got rid of some of what would be considered, so in some respects, deadwood. Some players like the likes of Koulibaly, players like Mount have gone, players like Havertz have gone, to open up space for him to actually work with the players he wants to work with. And you're starting to see that implemented in his tactics, implemented in the way he's playing. I would still say, though, we're missing players, key players through the centre of our team. We definitely need a goalkeeper still. We definitely need another central midfielder. We're obviously going after Disasi from Monaco as a centre-back option, with Fofana getting another long-term injury. And time will tell as to the impact that Jackson can have. But what he has done is he's got a good pressing, attacking impetus. He brings other players into play. And with the likes of Nkunku coming in, Madueke coming back from injury, you've got Mudryk firing so far in pre-season. It's a lot more youthful. I mean, we've got the youngest team we've had in years, with 3 players over the age of 25 in our main squad, in Chilwell, Sterling and Silva. So we've got a lot more youth. I don't think necessarily at this point, if you were to ask me right now, that we're at the same level as Manchester United. You don't go from being 12th in the league to automatically start getting back into the top four. We still have a lot of work to do.
Wait, what happened that season with Antonio Conte? Didn't you finish like 10th one season and you finished first the next season with Conte in his first season? What happened then?
If you look at the players that we had in that season, we still had the likes of Hazard, who the season before had down tools essentially for Mourinho.
Fabregas as well. Costa.
Fabregas. So you get those players in. That's a level of experience and quality that I don't think we necessarily have in our squad at this point. And again, because it's so youthful, a bit like the season that Lampard was in charge. Firstly, there's a lot of reliance on nurturing those players, getting them to understand. But the flip side of that is that they're a lot more eager to impress. They're going to work harder for you. They all want to fight for their shirt. And the fact that we're not in European competition this year will only make that easier for Pochettino to get them playing in his tactical style, if you will. We look like we're gonna go for a more pressing tactic, if you like, and we've got a lot of pace in the team now, which we very much lacked in previous seasons. So it's exciting times, but I would say if you just look at where we are now, we're missing just a few key components in the team, and we're swollen over the signing of Caicedo, which isn't good. You know, we saw last season what happens when we take too long to sign players; they end up going to Barcelona. So, yeah, we need to get these done deals over the line, and then I think we'll be in a much better position. But obviously, we'll get on to where I think we'll finish a bit later. So.
Yeah, no, it's a great shot there as well. And Sani, I kind of wanted to ask you and Tony as well, with the market the way that it is, wouldn't you think Chelsea would go for someone cheaper than Caicedo at 70, 80 million as well? Because I'm looking at him, thinking he's a fantastic player. And way back when, Man United were linked with him for 5 million when he was playing back in South America. And now is linked for Chelsea for 70, 80 million. Sani, I'll come to you and then I'll come to Tony first as well. Have you seen value in the summer transfer market this season from any team in the Premier League? Or has there been a lot of overspending as per usual? Sani first and then Tony. What about you?
Well, to be fair, we do have this cost of living crisis going on. Inflation definitely doesn't help. So the RPI index on a lot of these figures are going to be highly inflated. But all jokes aside, I think...
That's why I asked the accountant first.
No, of course. But I think all jokes aside, naturally, with the way the market has been, you're going to be overpaying for a lot of players. I think, especially when a club like Brighton, the way they performed, they're going to demand a lot of money for their players because they're on good contracts. And the way Brighton's transfer window works is they'll just get someone else in. Like they got rid of Cucurella last summer. Who did they bring in? Estupiñán, who was, for me, probably the best left back in the league. So Brighton are one of those teams where they'll know their players can fetch a premium. Once they sell that player, they can bring someone else in. So I don't think... Listen, I think Chelsea probably, like Sam said, should probably move away from that Caicedo deal. Otherwise, Barcelona might come in as someone else. But the problem is, these are the kind of fees that are going to be floating around a lot of players, especially when they show a lot of promise and they're Premier League proven. So it's one of them ones. Like we maybe overpaid for Hodgson, maybe we might have paid for Mount. But the one thing we have is we have that Man United premium that, Spotify went up by £1 a month. Anything Man United touches goes up by about 20 million. So that's just how it is really for us.
Yeah, it's true. Tony, how about you? Have you seen a few kind of bargain deals this summer in the Premier League, or is it kind of just, again, 70 million for Szoboszlai to Liverpool? Got Lavia being quoted at 40, 50 million after one season at Southampton. Have you seen any value in the market so far?
Well, one thing I've said is that now when it comes to the market, 50 million is a bargain. Back in the day, 50 million used to be your record fee.
But Fernando Torres fee, 12 years ago? Crazy.
Exactly. So that used to be, we're like, what, Torres for 50 million? But you knew like the Liverpool Torres. Imagine if you got that Liverpool Torres now for 50 million, right? That would seem like a bargain. So this is the thing, like the transfer market is just messed up, and it's just going to keep getting messed up because there's way more money into football, and obviously with like Saudi Arabia coming in and stuff like that, and that's just the market now. I haven't seen like many bargain deals as such because I think when you buy young players, you're now buying potential. Like with Romeo,
I agree.
Like for instance, I think Romeo Lavia for 50 million is going to be a bargain because I know I think he's such a good player. If I sign him for 50 million, that's my number 6 position sorted for 6-7 years minimum. And then 6-7 years down the line, we're going to be like, oh my gosh, do you remember when we signed him for 50 million? That was nothing. So I feel like, and with Højlund as well, even though it looks like we've overspent for Højlund now, he has a half decent season. No one's going to be talking about that fee. If we didn't sign him this season, and he had a half decent season at Atalanta again, it's going to be over 100 million. Then that's when we're going to, like the fact that I'm happy we signed him now because I know for a fact if we signed him next summer, it would have never happened to him. Because that's to 80 million euros, which is disgusting. But the fact that we done it for a 70 odd, I will take it now because the market is just getting messed up as it goes along, and you're just paying for potential nowadays. Like nothing's a sure thing. It's not like in the day where if you were signing 60 million, you knew exactly what you were getting that 60 million. Nowadays, it's just okay. 60 million is the new 30 million, and you're buying potential. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. So that's just unfortunately the market's going to just keep going like that.
I think you may have just given me the title for our podcast this week. 60 million is a new 30 million right there, which is insane. It's true though, because there's so many deals that have happened this summer. Like for me personally, I was really happy when I saw Manchester United go for Andre Onana. Obviously, I was really happy we got finally a new keeper after 12 years of David De Gea. And I'm not in a bad way. I've always loved David De Gea, but it's the money you have to spend to get a premium. And when you're looking at it in that manner as well, that the Andre Onana will be our keeper for a good another 6-7 years minimum. If you were to go down that route, it's going to be a bargain in a couple of years' time when you're looking back at it. But there's also the kind of route where you've got someone like, as Man United fans, we all know, Harry Maguire for £80 million. And when that's happening, you're looking at it thinking, still not really getting anywhere. And West Ham being quoted this week at trying to buy him for 20 million. So it goes to show you could make a loss if you go on for the wrong player straight away. But I'm looking forward to seeing what the rest of the transfer market has on offer. Like Tony said, we've got a month left of it so far. So I'm looking forward to seeing if we've got any more deals. I personally think Man United need to go for another striker just to have competition with Rasmus Højlund. And I'd like to see, as we've said last season, I think both Tony and everyone you've kind of heard, we've spoken about Marcus Rashford properly being a left winger for the first time in a long time, not always having to be a utility attacker on the right, in the middle, on the left. Just keep him on the left, let him grow his game, and he'll be perfectly fine.
I just think one quick thing with bargains I actually thought about was, so Brighton, obviously they lost McAllister and went to Liverpool. They got Mo Dahoud from Dortmund on a free transfer. Now I know that's not really, I mean, you could say it's a bargain in a way, but they didn't pay anything for him. But he's going to fit seamlessly into that Brighton squad because the way De Zerbi gets them to play, like I saw a clip actually in the summer series this preseason, the way they get out the press, it was against Newcastle, was something to behold. And who was the fulcrum there? Mo Dahoud. I'm telling you now, he's going to be a good player, I think, for Brighton this season for sure.
Definitely. And you basically just start us off from our Premier League preview topics, really. That was actually my last topic to talk about, but we'll start with it. Mo Dahoud, one to watch. We'll do one to watch. So everyone, obviously, I gave you a bit of a list of players to look forward to or teams to look forward to. So top goal scorer, winner, top 4 relegation, points approved, one to watch. So would Dahoud be your one to watch, Sani, for the season coming ahead? Would you go with that?
He actually isn't. He's actually in, is it SW6, the postcode in Chelsea? Some probably know better than me, but let's just say Fulham Broadway. Let's put it that way. Obviously, his name's Jackson. You've been hit by a smooth criminal. I'm telling you now, Nico Jackson. I like what I'm seeing from that guy. Listen, I know he's young. There's a lot of promise, but I think Chelsea are going to stick with him as a number 9, and I think he will be the one to watch. I like everything about him. He's got power. He's got pace. He's very, very intelligent as well. He's strong as well. I like what Pochettino can do with him. And I think he, for me, is the one to watch for Chelsea because they've been dying out for a striker because everyone knows about Chelsea's curse and strikers. And I think they finally got one since maybe Diego Costa, you'd say, who's an actual proper striker. I'm not saying he's on the level of Costa or even a Drogba, but he's got something about him that I think previous strikers didn't have at Chelsea. So I'm really looking forward to him.
Definitely. Sam, how about you? If you had to look at a player, it doesn't have to be a new signing or anything. Actually, we'll stick to new signings. If there's a new signing in the Premier that you're looking forward to watching, who would it be and why?
New signing. Well, I mean, I'll go with Chelsea. I said about Nkunku last season. I don't know if you remember that. Technically, we bought him before this season, but him coming in again, he adds a different attacking impetus to Chelsea. He can play across the front line in any different position. Much like Jackson, he adds a bit of pace, he has a bit of power, he's skillful, he's got goals in him, he's got assists, and I think he'll fit in tactically very well with what Pochettino is trying to do. And I think adding that level of quality in the team is something that we've needed since Hazard's gone. We've really lacked a level of creativity in our team. I mean, last season was our worst attacking season ever, so it tells you everything we needed going forward. We've gone away from tried and tested, if you like, the Ziyech's, the Pulisic's, that they've gone, and we're starting afresh. So seeing Nkunku add that little bit of flair in there, a bit of pace, that injection of creativity. I'm quite excited to see him for Chelsea.
Absolutely. Tony, how about yourself? One to watch.
New signings, I'm going to go Moussa Diaby for Villa.
Oh, that was mine. That was mine.
If not, I'll go Yuri Tielemans.
No, go Diaby.
Anyone in Villa, really, because I don't know what Unai Emery is cooking over there, but they have to win. I think they're the best team in the Europa Conference League right now, especially with Juventus going out. I feel like Moussa Diaby is going to be a really good signing for Villa. I feel like Villa don't normally play with wide men, but when you've got a winger like that who can go off both feet as well, and he's already been scoring in pre-season in the Premier League Summer Series, so I've got time for Moussa Diaby. I feel like he's going to be one. He's definitely going to be one to watch. I'm not sure if he's going to have the massive impacts that we're going to see, like 10 goals, 10 assists, but he's going to be a vital cog in that Villa team, and a Villa team that I'm looking at, I'm thinking, oh, like I might have to Villa away, Villa Park easy. Like, it's not going to be easy because I feel like he's got a lot of profiles he's won. He signed Pau Torres, who I know a lot of United fans were linked with for a long time. He signed Yuri Tielemans, which we totally forgot about. The Diaby as well. They've still got young players like Jacob Ramsey, Coutinho somewhere along there. So you're thinking, all right, Villa, like what are you guys cooking over there? So I think Moussa Diaby is going to be my one to watch when it comes to new signings.
Yeah, he's a fantastic player, and the reason I had him as like my number one is because when I had the opportunity to watch Bayern Leverkusen last season in Berlin, which was a great day out. My wife enjoyed it. She enjoyed being a German football hooligan for a day. Shout out Mariam. But yeah, I got into a fight, which is quite funny, which you'll see on my matchday vlog if you follow Friday Night Counter Attack. Nah, it wasn't a big fight. But no, Moussa Diaby is someone who I've watched and I've really enjoyed watching him for like 2-3 years now, because he's someone who can play on both wings. He should really have gone to Qatar, in my opinion, for the French national team. I think he was better than a few of the other attackers there. And I personally think with the money that Aston Villa spent, 40 million on Moussa Diaby, something like that, he could have easily have gone to PSG when they were looking at rebuilding their side. They're looking for another winger after Lionel Messi went, and with Mbappe leaving, I think instead of going for injury-prone Ousmane Dembele, Moussa Diaby would have been a much better deal, because he used to play for PSG as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Moussa Diaby as well. One transfer that's really kind of got me going is Sandro Tonali from AC Milan to Newcastle. So again, I really like how Sandro Tonali has played over the last couple of years, kind of emerging as the kind of poster boy for the future Italian national team, and with AC Milan as well. And he had a really good Champions League run, as we all saw last season, getting to the semi-finals of AC Milan. But that was a very random transfer because AC Milan just needed the money, and Maldini had left as well. So their way of going through youthful, exuberant new players kind of went out the window, and Tonali has kind of funded 4 new transfers for AC Milan. But I think with Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes, Sani, I think we mentioned it last week as well, that's going to be a tough midfield to face against that St. James's Park as well. A ball controlling Regista, and then you've got a tough tackling box-to-box guy in Bruno Guimaraes as well. So after Tony stole Moussa Diaby from me, Sandro Tonali is definitely the player to watch for me, which would be good fun as well. I think we're going to have to go with the easiest question of the podcast. Who's going to win the Premier League next season? Is it anyone other than Manchester City? I don't think so. What do you think, Sam?
Nah, I've got Man City down. I mean, I like the business that Arsenal have done. I think their midfield certainly is going to be a bit more rigid with Declan Rice coming in. But I think they still lack up front. Like, you can't have Haaland scoring 30 plus goals for City and then Gabriel Jesus getting injured halfway through and not scoring nearly as many goals as he should as a striker for a team that are challenging for the title. And Eddie Nketiah is his second striker. I mean, they've done okay, but they fell off at the back end of the season. I just think that Man City just have so much in their squad, obviously, and every time they seem to get a sign in, it's such a shrewd buy. The likes of Akanji in for peanuts, like Tony's been saying. That's when you're talking about value for money. That's Man City's scouting is fantastic for finding those gems.
How about Kovacic for free? How did that feel, obviously, as a Chelsea fan for you?
Well, there's two ways of looking at it from my perspective. He obviously wanted out, and you can't blame him for the season that we had last season. He was our player of the season for a couple of seasons. He was fantastic for us for what he did, but he barely played last season under the different regimes that we had. And when Man City come calling, when Chelsea don't have any European football, he's getting on in the years. I can't see why Chelsea would keep a player that a bit like Mason Mount as well. If you don't want to be there, it's better to start again with players that do want to fight for that shirt.
Definitely. And who would be your top 4 for this season with Manchester City as champions? Do Arsenal get into that top 4 again?
Yeah, I'd say Arsenal are going to come second. Again,
Second.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah, definitely.
Even without, that's going to be a fun one. Even without that focal point as a number 9, that's going to be difficult, I think, with Arsenal, with other teams that have strengthened as well. But then, sorry, carry on. Your top
that's
4.
fine. No, I think it'll be City, Arsenal, Manchester United, and then I really can't throw my hat on a 4th. It could be Liverpool, it could be Newcastle. I don't think it'll be Chelsea, I'll tell you that. But Tottenham, if Harry Kane stays, they're always in with a shout. Although they need to sort out their defence.
They need at least 2 new centre backs, I think Tottenham do, which would be insane.
For sure. But I would definitely say City, Arsenal, United, and if I had to throw anything, I would say Liverpool, on the basis that it's Newcastle's first year in the Champions League and there's a lot of hype around that. So
definitely. Tony, how about your winners and your top 4? And have you got any curveballs to throw at us today?
The first curveball is that officially it's going to be top 5 this season.
Oh,
so someone can sneak and get 5th and officially still make the Champions League, because this is the last Champions League format with the whole group stages and knockout stages. This is the last year, and then coefficient we actually get 5 places. But
so Chelsea could make the Champions League then, Sam.
That was going to be my curveball. So I don't want City to win it. As a United fan, I'm kind of tired of City winning it, and I don't want City to be the first team to win it 4 times in a row. And City haven't really signed. Obviously, they signed Kovacic, great signing, replaced Gundogan in a sense. But other than that, Mahrez has gone. You can put Foden on the wing, you can do that. But City have, I don't want to say they've regressed, because I said that last season when they're like, they got rid of their wingers when they signed Haaland. They're still going to be a force to reckon with City, because they've still got the best squad in the league. But they're slowly getting worse, and I think other teams are getting better. Man United are getting better, Arsenal getting better. I'm not going to try and make a case for Man United winning the league as much as I want to, but it all depends on Man City, Arsenal, United. Whoever starts really well first. Like, do you remember how Arsenal started really well, and then their first game they lost to us, but then they just kept winning after that? I feel like if you have a really good start to the Premier League, like, it puts you in a conversation you never thought you were in. For Man United, obviously, we've got some difficult games. We've got Spurs away. We've got Arsenal away quite early as well. So I can't put Man United up there. So I will say City. Top 5 would be no particular order: City, United, Arsenal. I think Liverpool will be there, and I think Chelsea. I've got time for Chelsea. I feel like if Chelsea make a couple more signings, Chelsea will be up there. I feel like if they get that defensive mid, we're going to see the best out of Enzo Fernandez. And I think he's a ridiculous footballer. I wanted him at United. That was the midfielder I wanted, but he's somehow at Chelsea. And Chelsea as well. Like, look at the team. Okay, they need a keeper. If they sort out that keeper problem, they're sorted. Centre backs wise, Levi Colwill will probably be there. Thiago Silva, yeah, that works. You got Chilwell. You got Cucurella to back up Chilwell. That's fine. Right backs, you've probably got 2 of the best young right backs in the league. You've got Reece James, you've got Malo Gusto. Again, Malo Gusto, I went to that United. So I look at that, defense doesn't look that bad. Like, this Chelsea team we're not gonna see the same Chelsea team from last season. Fair enough, you're going with youth, but I feel like they rebuild properly, because I watch a lot of American sports. I know, and we've only been using this term rebuild in English football recently. But with rebuilds, like it happens in American sports all the time, is like you find a way you want to play, you find a way you want to sign people, and you have your thing and you work with it. You see how Chelsea have just signing young players. They got rid of a lot of their players, like literally won the Champions League with them 2 seasons ago, and now they've gone and they brought in these youngsters. So I feel like they can creep into that top 5. It all depends with Liverpool and Chelsea. If Liverpool sign Romeo Lavia, then maybe I'll put Liverpool over Chelsea. But I'm just thinking, if Chelsea can get a goalkeeper, a DM, and that's it. I think a goalkeeper and a DM. If they can play Enzo Fernandez a bit forward as an 8 rather than a 6, you're going to get the best out of Enzo Fernandez. You've got Nicholas Jackson, who's been looking really good. You've got Madueke, who looks really good at the under-21s Euros. Mudryk, if he decides that he can play football, that might help them, and he can play in Cuckoo just behind. So I'm looking at that, I'm thinking that's a good team. That's a good team, and they got a good manager, and that team's going to work for someone like Mauricio Pochettino, who we've seen is a good manager. So I'll put them in my top 5. So it'll be United, Arsenal, City, no in particular order, by the way, because I feel like
I was hoping you're going to leave United at the top. It would have been good clickbait there. United.
Nah. And I honestly, as much as I'm kind of scared to watch United this season, I look at the way we played last season is we won a lot of games, whether we like it or not, and we lost a lot of games, and the season was up and down, but we did win a lot of games. And at the end, we only finished 9 points behind Arsenal. And I know with the signings we made, that's an extra 9 points minimum. So I think we're going to break the 80, maybe 85 threshold, or wherever that puts us come May. We'll see then. And I think that's definitely at least a top 5 finish.
Definitely. No, that's good to hear. Sani, I want to talk to you before, well, including your top 5 and your winner. We have to talk about Liverpool, and we have to talk about how Liverpool went from one season being quadruple contenders to finishing 5th outside the Champions League for the first time in, I think, nearly at least 10 years or so, since 2014 or so, which was insane for them because it's not even 10 years, but you know what I mean? For a very long time, they've been in the Champions League, they've been in that title hunt, they've been Manchester City's main challengers for a good number of years, and Jurgen Klopp has got rid of Milner, has got rid of Oxlade-Chamberlain, got rid of Jordan Henderson, got rid of Fabinho as well. They've got a new look midfield with Dominic Szoboszlai, who is actually more of a winger, as we've seen for Hungary and RB Leipzig, doesn't really like to trap back as much. Alexis McAllister, as you mentioned earlier, moving from Brighton to Liverpool as well. What's your first thoughts on Liverpool this season as well, and with Jurgen Klopp's kind of new look midfield in this side? Because Gakpo hasn't really settled in as of when. Nunes is still, we're not sure if it's going to be a left winger or a striker. Well, what are your thoughts on Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool for the season?
I think they're kind of one of the biggest what ifs, I think, going into the season, because everyone was shocked with how it turned out for them last season. I mean, I thought they were probably going to finish second last season. They were going to be, City's biggest challengers, but obviously we know how that turned out. Obviously, they've lost a lot of experience in this transfer window. Henderson's gone, Fabinho's gone, even Firmino as well. I know
about him.
Yeah, I know obviously Ox went as well, and Naby Keita, but I think they were more on the peripheral, as opposed to like Henderson and Fabinho, who were kind of more mainstays. And Firmino, obviously, he's been a great servant for Liverpool. See, like you said, they brought in 2 midfielders who they're a lot more attacking. Obviously, McAllister can play more of that box to box, which is what they need. They need a lot more energy. We saw that last season when it came to kilometers run. I know people thinking it's not an athletic show, and fine, we ain't Mo Farah or Paula Radcliffe. But the thing is, running in these games in the Premier League where it's high energy, you need legs, and having fresh players like this who will run are going to be really important for Liverpool going forward. Their attack is phenomenal. Obviously, a lot of people gave Nunez a lot of stick last season. And obviously, I think that kind of started from the Community Shield where he scored. Haaland didn't. The whole comparison started from there. But I think he's definitely one to watch. He's definitely got the movement to be a threat. He just needs to, I think, have a run of the green. And I think he'll be okay and get a lot of goals for Liverpool this season. Salah, one of the best wingers the Prem's ever seen. Luis Diaz, he was a big miss last season. He's going to come back as well. Obviously, you got Jota, Gakpo. That's a pretty decent attack, if you ask me. They just need to get that midfield clicking. And hopefully Van Dijk picks up a lot of form for them. Obviously not for us, but for them. And I think they're good because if you look at Alisson, for example, he was probably their best player. In terms of goals prevented, he was positive 9.8. He was easily the best keeper in the league. And if it wasn't for him, they could have been a lot further down. So listen, Liverpool, I think, are going to have a good season. That's what I'm going to say. That's my curveball, maybe, if you want to call it that. I think they finished 3rd. I think they're going to come back with a vengeance. Die hard with a vengeance, because Bruce Willis at the helm, aka Jurgen Klopp, he's going to do some damage.
As always, it's going to happen with his heavy metal football. What's your top 5 looking like, Sani?
Hate to say it, but I think City are going to win the league. I think they win 4 in a row. And unfortunately, again, this might be a hot take, but I think that kind of ends the debate at the best Premier League side of all time. You can't dispute 4 in a row. I think second will be Arsenal. I think Arsenal have, barring a striker that they could have probably done with, they've done some pretty good business.
Do you not think Balogun will start for them? I don't think he's leaving just yet.
I don't think he starts for them. I think he's probably a better option than Eddie Nketiah, I'd say. But I don't think Arteta trusts him enough to start him over an Nketiah. I think Timber has been a really good signing for them. I kind of was hoping he could have came to us, but having 2 defenders over 6 foot, the memes on Twitter would have been ridiculous. But it's funny how he signed for Arsenal this season, and I must admit the memes that we got with Alessandro Martinez last season compared to what I've seen with Timber has been not even half of what Martinez.
It's because Arsenal ones are the ones that make the memes. They have nothing better to do than make
and with a bigger club,
and that as well, which is insane.
I think Havertz, we'll see how that works out, but I think that's a cheeky signing for them. And then obviously Rice, everyone wanted him. I think it's good. It's a good window for Arsenal. Whether they can keep that up with UCL football is another question. I think Liverpool finished 3rd. I think we finished 4th. I think there is promise with us, but I just don't know. I just don't know if we can bridge that gap There were a lot of games last season that, like Tony mentioned, we were winning some, we were losing some, but I just think this season, I don't think we'll have as much luck personally. But again, let's see what happens. And I think Tony's right. Fifth, Chelsea. There's something about Chelsea, just like there's something about Mary and, Pochettino in, the players they've got in. Things are going to be looking rosy, I think, in the west of London. But the question I think that I'm really interested to see is how Newcastle do this season, because obviously they finished fourth last season. How is European football going to do for them? I know they got Tonali and Harvey Barnes. They lost Alex Maximan. People are thinking they can have, a bigger pull this year with Champions League, but it just goes to show that a lot of these clubs that you're dealing with, that Newcastle are going up against in the Premier League, for example, they still have rich pedigree. I'm not saying Newcastle don't, but compared to like your Liverpools, your Arsenals, even Man United, Chelsea, even City now, I think there's a different level there, which is going to take a couple of seasons for Newcastle to bridge.
Yeah, it's like, I think at the end of the season, we spoke about it in terms of how they were still in their Bellamy Adebayor stage of their riches in their club as well. And they've jumped the gun a few years before Man City did. So they're going to have to make a big impact in European football. And Eddie Howe's going to have to get ready to look at some of these teams that is playing in the group stages in the Champions League to think about who can he replace some of his players with next season. He's not going to be relying on the likes of like Emil Kraft and Jacob Murphy all the time, like he has last season, which worked really well for him. But a few players for Newcastle did leave on a free transfer. I think Paul Dummett was one who's been there at the club for like 6-7 years as well. So it's going to be good to see how the likes of Callum Wilson, Isaac do in the Champions League, how they do in the league as well. Is there a real number 9 for Newcastle? Is it going to be Wilson again? Or do you think Alexander Isak can actually start for Newcastle United this season? Because I thought it's fantastic. He's definitely one of the best signings from last season. What do you think, Sani?
Yeah, Isak has so much potential. I mean, when he was at Dortmund, everyone was like, who's this wonder kid? He came to Newcastle, 60 million, big price tag, but he's got a lot of promise. I hope he gets a chance this season to play a few more games, because last season, I think Wilson obviously was the better player and the better striker, but Isak, I think there's something about him that you need that bit of flair, especially in the Champions League. And I remember back in the day I was only a kid, but everyone talks about Newcastle in the Champions League, the NTL kit, for example. They had a pretty good squad then as well. And if they can form something like that, that'd be pretty good. I mean, it'd be nice if Newcastle won a trophy. I think that's, you mentioned the Bellamy, Adebayor City kind of start. What helped them was winning that trophy when they beat us along the way onto that FA Cup where they beat Stoke in the final. If they can win a trophy, that would be huge for Newcastle. But I mean, Tony mentioned it earlier about rebuilds, and I know he likes watching American sports, but Danny Ainge at the Boston Celtics, that was a perfect example of a rebuild. When you have, they had their draft picks, they bought the likes of, or bought more like drafted the likes of Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Obviously, he's got that bumper contract now. They had a team that kept going into the playoffs. Newcastle need to realize that they need to take time with this. I'm not saying it's a rebuild, but this project that they've got going. They brought in Harvey Barnes, who I think is a great piece of business, underrated player, I think. Keep going with this. Don't expect, the big superstars to come in the door, because that's one thing that Newcastle done very good last season. They didn't buy any of these superstars and they worked wonders with them. If they keep this going for the first couple of seasons, then I think Newcastle can be a serious player in the Premier League.
Currently Man City in no less than 5 years, I think, for the title, which will be big as well. Right, next topic to talk about, point to prove. So everyone, you're now going to share with me a player or a manager who you think has a point to prove this season after not doing that great last season as well. And we can all leave out Romelu Lukaku, because I don't think he's going to make any appearances for Chelsea this season. If Arsenal do want to go for another striker, they could potentially go for Romelu Lukaku, but I'm not going to ask anyone to go for like any of these exile players at any of these clubs as well. So Sam, let's start with you. From a player's perspective or from a manager's perspective, who needs to kind of make a point this season in terms of showing up that they're the real deal? Can be mid-table, can be top of the table, below the table. I'm
going to keep it Chelsea because it's easier for me.
Everyone at Chelsea, literally.
But do you know what I mean? Like Chelsea in terms of the squad as a team, we can't be finishing as low as we did. But for as a fan and wanting to see players prove a point, Mudryk's come in under a lot of expectation, and I'd like to see him prove to us that 20 minutes against Liverpool, he can do that consistently. He had a great 20 minutes there, but other than that, there's a lot of highlights of him losing the ball, dribbling it out of play, and not having any end product. He started pre-season pretty well. He looks lively, he's obviously sharp, and he's very raw. But in terms of what Chelsea need, we need that fire, we need that flair, we need that player to start setting other teams on the back foot and to really put the scare into them. Because if we don't have that kind of player, and if Mudryk isn't that player, then we've got other people, I suppose. But he's coming under a lot of premise, and what we need to see is that potential really making him into the player that we believe he can be.
Absolutely. No, good shout there with Mudryk as well. And I was someone who quite enjoyed him at Shakhtar Donetsk in the group stages last season in the Champions League. But also last season, Tony, you'll remember this, my player to watch was Jadon Sancho. And that didn't really turn out well, did it? Did it, Tony? For me.
Well, the thing is, he's got one to prove.
Yeah, again.
And at the end of the day, like, this is make or break for Sancho. It's his third year. This is make or break. And do you know what it is? I feel like you can give up with a player when they don't show glimpses and they don't do it consistently. But with Sancho last season, he showed it was officially statistically his best season at United, which isn't hard. But he showed some glimpses. I think of the Liverpool at home goal. I feel like the goal against Spurs away as well. I think of these type of things. The goal against Leicester as well, that little 1-2 with Bruno. I'm like, okay, there's glimpses of a player. But unfortunately, he's not the player we saw at Dortmund. And we're trying to shoehorn him into a position because we're trying to make it work. I know Ten Hag's been playing him false nine. I doubt we're ever going to see that in the Premier League. I think that's just a pre-season thing. I don't know with Sancho. Like I want him to do well, and I feel like he's a good player. But I feel like he's one of those players that need to be surrounded by good players. That makes sense. It's kind of like a Donny van de Beek situation. It's like these players have their certain type of football, and I think Donny and Sancho are a perfect example. They're like you touch, I touch football. Do you know what I mean? It's like the 1-2s. That's their bread and butter, and that's the way they play football. And unfortunately, with a Man United, we don't have a lot of those profiles. You're not going to play you touch, I touch with Rashford. You're not going to do that with Bruno because Bruno's going to slap the ball where he wants you to be, and he wants you to run it behind. So I feel like with the more players that we get who are technically sound on the ball, I think we'll see a better outcome. It all depends with Sancho. It all depends where we play him, because I feel like the left wing's kind of wrapped up now for Rashford and Garnacho. Right wing, if Anthony's there, if we keep Ahmad could play on the right wing as well. And as a 10, we've kind of got right now, or as 8, we've got Bruno, we've got Mount, we've got Van der Beek if he stays, we've got Eriksen. So it's kind of like, where does Sancho fit? Where do we get the best out of him? And I don't think it's the wings. I feel like Ten Hag said, like, we're trying to look for him in central position. So I don't think he's going to play on the wings anymore, because he's not really running in behind. He's not really beating his man. And Ten Hag said it the other day, like, we don't really have that many wingers that are good on one-on-one situations, which is bare minimum for wingers. But anyway, so he's one to watch. I feel like wherever we stick him in, he has to do well this season, because if he doesn't, he might be looking at one to sell, because that's 3 years into his 5-6 year deal, and you're thinking, okay, 2 years left. If we don't sell him next season, then we had to sell him last season. So this is kind of a make or break season for him. I feel like he's still in the balance at the moment of whether we sell him or not. I feel like there's some United fans, if they would sell him now, they wouldn't really bat an eyelid. And then there's others that are like being like, come on, let's give him at least one more. So this is make or break for him. And I hope he does well. I hope we find a good position for him, because he was a great player at Dortmund. He was putting up ridiculous numbers at Dortmund. And I know Bundesliga tax or whatever you want to say. And I know we never signed well from Dortmund. But as an English guy, he wanted to do well. And I feel like out of the England squad, especially with the Euros coming up as well, this is a big year for him. So he's looked sharp in pre-season, which is fine. But I feel like he looked sharper because he was one of the guys he had a longer holiday. Wasn't playing any football during the summer, and he's played every single preseason game so far. So when he was playing,
started them all, I think, as well, besides one of them. Yeah,
exactly. So he's been sharp. I think he's sharper than the others, as a sense. I need to see that sharpness into the season when everyone's sharp, basically. So yeah, he's my one to watch.
Excellent. Sani, fire away. Where's your one to watch?
There's so many players. I mean, Sancho was definitely on my list. The amount of times I went to Old Trafford, saw him playing it was just frustrating, because you'd think there is a player there. He just wasn't showing it enough, especially after the Leeds game, because I was at that game. He got the goal. I was like, this
where
could
we
be
met for the first time.
Yeah, I was like, this could be it. This could be the start of something special. But then,
It was the start of something special. It was a good. Oh, you're talking about Sancho. I thought you were talking about our meeting.
oh man, I feel bad now after doing you like that. No, sorry. Good thing it's not Valentine's Day. But anyhow, yeah,
it could be. What?
yeah. Nevertheless, it was quite, weird to see that, he couldn't really kick on from there. But, this season, like Tony said, I think it's probably his make or break. If you stick at Man United, I think Anthony's got a big point to prove. Listen, I wasn't the biggest fan of when he came in. Last season, I was like, I just don't know if he's going to work out Man United. It's very, very one-footed, never uses his right foot, which is the most frustrating thing I've ever seen. Like Iron Robin, right? Sam will know this when he was at Chelsea. Yes, he was very, very left-footed. But my God, he was very, very good with that left foot. Anthony, I just don't know what it is with him. Mason Mount's got a point to prove as well if we keep it Man United, because he didn't have the best season at Chelsea last season. A lot of Chelsea fans, I think,
Sam included.
Yeah, and we didn't need him, but he's definitely got a point to prove. But you can make a bloody XI with the amount of players I've got points to prove. Calvin Phillips at City, he's got a point to prove, not only to us, but also to Pep Guardiola after what he said as well. Kai Havertz going to Arsenal, everyone's thinking, the Bundesliga tax, he's just not good enough. He's another Werner. They need to go. He's got a point to prove, I think, as well. Who else? Richarlison at Spurs. Richarlison's got a massive point to prove. Everyone thought he was going to be something special for Spurs. He had that World Cup. He had the pigeon dances, all of that, but he was just not dancing on the football pitch because he just wasn't that good. But, I mean, you could say Heung-min Son as well. Didn't have a good season last year after the season he had before.
That was my one to watch.
So I think he won the Golden Boot, didn't he? He won the Golden Boot.
Season before he did, which is great.
Yeah, it's weird. Cucurella maybe even at Chelsea a lot. I mean, I've got a friend who despises Cucurella, even though he's got a lovely bonnet, but he's got a point to prove as well. And even one more before I finish, after my monologue, Harry Maguire. I think he's got a point to prove because a lot of Man United fans despise Harry Maguire. And I can understand why they don't want him to play in the team. But he's still a player for the right team. He's still got qualities, which if you use him correctly, he's going to be a valuable addition to the team. Hence why £20 million, I think, is quite disrespectful of a valuation of Harry Maguire, at least 40 minimum. But like I said, we'll see what happens in the season, but they're my couple players that have a big point to prove in the next season.
One of mine is from Fulham. I'm going to go for João Paulino because he had a really good season last season, and he was a good player for Fulham and a key factor in how well Marco Silva and Fulham did in that FA Cup run, in their league run as well. I'm looking forward to seeing how he's going because I personally thought for someone like Jurgen Klopp, he would be a perfect shoe-in for a number 6 to replace Fabinho and for Henderson in that midfield. And I know everyone wants to go for the youthful players now, but Paulino's only like 26, 27. I thought it would have been a really good player to go. And because it's not been linked with anyone, and we've seen over the last few years, players will leave after like 1 year. Koulibaly is a prime example in their like 3 or 4 year contract. So it goes to show that Paulino, even though it's not been linked with anyone, it's kind of worrying because I thought he did really well. One of the highest tacklers in the Premier League last season. Key player for Fulham and making it into the Portuguese squad for the World Cup last season, which was big. The other player I kind of want to shout out and I kind of want to have a look out for as well this season is it's going to be a Wolves player. And I want to see Pedro Neto again. Pedro Neto 2 seasons ago was the player to watch in terms of from the mid-table to lower league tables. He was one of those players that when you see these polls on social media, who's one of the best players outside the top 6, lockdown Pedro Neto was a player to watch, and he was a joy to watch for Wolverhampton Wanderers. He came back from his injury last season, end of last season, coming into it and thinking like, oh yeah, he'll get back into the team. He didn't really kind of kick it off with the new manager as well, but I like to see more from him, especially because Raul Jimenez, club legend for Wolverhampton Wanderers, has left for Fulham. I want to see how Pedro Neto does and if he can take on the mantle of being one of the main men for Wolverhampton, because they have a lot of attacking players who are like in and out of the team besides Jimenez before his injury, but Neto I wanted to see a bit more from as well. And if I'm going to go down kind of that route, the mid-table, lower table, for Nottingham Forest, I really want to see how Brennan Johnson does again. We spoke about it last season, Sani, about how well he did in the Premier League. First season for him in the Premier League and Nottingham Forest surviving relegation. I really did enjoy watching him now. And I thought Aston Villa would have been a team to have kind of gone from for a 30, 40 million pound bid for European football. And I thought it would have been pretty good in terms of that respect. But I have to shout out Brennan Johnson and Taiwo Awoniyi as well. He's a fantastic player at the end of last season for Nottingham Forest. But yeah, those are my kind of players to watch out for in terms of they've got more points to prove and improve on what they've done from last season and prove that they're not one season wonders, which is good fun indeed. Right then, Last two questions before we wrap up this podcast. Top scorer and top assist. Who's going to get the top assist? So top scorer, I'm going to go for Haaland. I'm pretty sure everyone's going to go for Haaland. Everyone's Haaland, right?
Haaland, I'm checking
Yeah.
We're going
Højlund.
we're going for Højlund. Højlund will do it. Højlund and Bruno combo is going to happen this season. Mark my words, it's going to happen. He's finally got a striker to work with him, Rasmus Højlund. But yeah, Haaland again, it's going to be quite easy. And is there going to be I think with Bruno Fernandes having a striker now, he's going to get a lot more assists. With a key striker, that's what worked well with Kevin De Bruyne last season, getting the assists that he did. And I think he's going to break the record as well for most assists of all time. Is there anyone that can kind of stop Kevin De Bruyne in terms of having the most assists? Tony, what do you think?
All depends if Chelsea's striker situation goes well. But I feel like one person who can get a lot of assists this season is Enzo Fernandez. I feel like I've been saying his name a lot, but it just shows.
He's a really good player. He's just playing out of position last season, which was annoying.
He is ridiculous. And unfortunately for Chelsea fans, it's going to be a while. Once Chelsea get good again, he's going off to Real Madrid in a 3 years' time. But he's a ridiculous footballer. Absolutely, like one of the best passers I've seen in a long time. And if you play him, like obviously Chelsea have been playing him as a 6, so he's been doing it from deep. If you play him a bit further forward, and if they get that striker, it's going to be Enzo that's going to be the one giving them the assist. It's going to be Enzo just putting those balls just in behind for Nkunku as well, who gets a lot of goals. And if Nicholas Jackson kicks on, that's 2 people he can feed in to get some goals. So if it's not your typical Haaland ex De Bruyne, I'm going for Enzo Fernandez. I feel like if Chelsea can start scoring again, he's going to be the one that's going to be giving the ball to them. So that would be my pick if it's not the regulars.
If it's not the regulars, great shout there. Sam, what do you think? Do you reckon Enzo Fernandez has it in him to become one of the top assisters in the season coming up?
Do you know, it's hard to say. I completely take on board what Tony said there. The problem with us is that we haven't seen it. We haven't got the pieces on the chessboard yet. Chelsea are very much in need of it, that's for sure. But I don't see it getting past Kevin De Bruyne. I just think that link between him and Haaland is so good. Although De Bruyne obviously doesn't play as often with the Champions, if not the best player in the Premier League, and it's going to take quite a lot to take him off his perch.
It will be. Tony, just a quick introduction. With Enzo Fernandez, did you watch him in Qatar at the World Cup? Were you at one of the games? Yeah. Was it the Mexico game you went to?
It was, which one did he score? Did he score against Mexico?
Yeah.
It was the Mexico game.
Yeah.
That was it.
Crazy.
Now I remember, because that's why you're going so on
so
about
good,
Enzo Fernandez.
man. Like, honestly, he's just so good, because I remember we were linked with him when he was at Benfica, and I was just like, he's just a perfect profile for what I thought Man United needed. But obviously Ten Hag wants to go play transition football, which is fine. I get it. But I think he's such a ridiculous footballer. And it's annoying because 1, he's gone to Chelsea, and 2, like when he went to Chelsea, they were playing him as a 6. And I'm like, no, like just play him as an 8. He's not a 6. He's good enough. Them ones, it's like a Pogba situation. You see a really good passer, and you're like, all right, because I don't have any good passers on my team, I need you to get on the ball first from the centre backs. So I'm going to play you 6, but you're not really a 6. So you're getting 50-60% the best out of him, which is still good, but it's not enough for people like me. When you watch him in a good position, I'm like, this is where his best position was. So yeah, I feel
like that's a lot like when we had Fabregas. We had the perfect foil for him when we had Matic, and then Kante coming in after, allowing him to have that freedom. And look what Fabregas did for us in the few seasons he was there. We obviously revere him as one of the best passers we've ever had. So you're probably right there, Tony. As soon as you get that extra midfielder, and if they start firing up front, then we might see better of him.
Yeah, it's quite crazy, because it's literally like Moises Caicedo will unlock Enzo Fernandez this season. Literally, just like you said as well. Like when you got a holding number 6 right there, and you've got someone like Kante or Matic with Fabregas, that's what unlocked him in those 2-3 years that you had him. And that's kind of what Enzo Fernandez needs, from what Tony's been saying about him when he played for Argentina at the World Cup. And it goes to show how well he can be as an attacking threat, as opposed to just a midfield player box to box as well, that we've seen so far at Chelsea. Sani, Any type of assisters you can think. Is Harry Kane going to make the list for you, or is it going to be KDB again?
I think it is KDB. I think it's just an easy choice. It's an easy option.
Harry Kane would have made it if Richarlison scored his chances last
To be
season.
fair, there's another Spurs player that's probably got a shout. He's underrated shout, but Maddison could have an absolute blinder if Harry Kane stays and Son finds his shooting boots and Kulusevski, and somehow gets something going as well. Maddison could be a threat to that. Bruno is a good shout, to be fair, because if you look at chances created and big chances created, he actually was the most. He topped the list, but the thing is, we didn't have a striker to bury him.
For 6 months, we had Wout Weghorst up front, which was embarrassing.
God bless Wout Weghorst. The fact that we saw that, God, man, good thing he wasn't locked down. Otherwise, I'd have been pulling my hair out, to be honest. But yeah, I think that was interesting. I think when I saw that Bruno had that many chances. Who else has got a shout? Arsenal. Trossard got 12 assists last season. Will he kind of do the same? I don't think he'll be starting as many games, so maybe not as much. Liverpool, Salah, I think he finished second, didn't he, in the assist chart? So again, the thing with Salah, he has underrated stats like every season. I don't know if he hit 20 last season, but 12 assists and nearly 20 league goals. That's unbelievable for someone that doesn't really get as much praise as like your Hazards and your Mahrez. They're not as technical as I said that he's not as technical as them. But
for some people, he doesn't pass the eye test as well, which is crazy for that Mo Salah.
I just think productivity is a big thing on a football pitch, and he has production. So whether you like to see him play or not, he has production. And then Chelsea, Enzo Fernandez is an interesting shout, to be fair, but I think maybe it depends where they play. And Kunku, do they play him down the middle, or is that more advanced, just behind the striker kind of position? But Enzo, that'd be a good shout. Enzo's a good shout. I like that shout.
Nah, it's a good shout from Enzo as well, which would be good. I'm really looking forward to seeing how I think Moussa Diaby will be up there. That's my kind of hot take as well. I think I'm so looking forward to seeing him in England, but I think he'll be really good with Leon Bailey, with Ollie Watkins, those front three pressing up front for Aston Villa. And kind of like we said at the beginning, Tony, as well, that Emery's been on the madness this summer, and the pool that he has compared to Steven Gerrard as well, it goes to show how well he can do it. And we may even see a reemergence in Philippe Coutinho as a number 10. As opposed to like another centre midfielder that we saw under Steven Gerrard. So that could be a big one to look out for as well. But I'm really looking forward to the Premier League season. I'm really looking forward to hopefully seeing Sani at a few Man United games, and hopefully Tony as well, because I know you go on weekends and that'll be a good one as well. Sam, I'm not really looking forward to seeing how Pochettino comes back with a vengeance for Chelsea Football Club, which won't be great because they can only be better than what they had last season as well. But final thoughts on the podcast from everyone for the Premier League season. Again, we've said one player to watch out for, but who's a player that you think we don't do negativity on this podcast? So I'm not going to say it again. Okay, how can I finalize it in a good way? Everyone share a footballer in the Premier League this season who you think is going to score a banging goal, because when it comes back to it, it's going to be a good clip. So everyone who mention a player who you think is going to score a banging goal this season. Sam, we'll start with you.
I had him as one of my players to watch. Obviously, we did new signings, but I've got Evan Ferguson down for Brighton. He looks like a player, and I think that with the way that Brighton play and the fluidity of their attacking football, he's not only going to be one to watch, but he'll score a lot more goals. And it wouldn't surprise me if he scored a goal of a spectacular fashion.
Yeah, before his contract signed, I thought Man United should have gone in for him as well. He would have been a really good striker for us to build around. Tony, how about you? Are you looking forward to seeing Evan Ferguson? And who's a player you're looking forward to watching score a banging goal this season?
I'm going to go the same route as Sam, going down the South Coast, Julio Enciso. He should have been one of my players to watch, but we saw the banger he scored against Man City. And Enciso now, obviously, you still got Mitoma on that left wing as well. But what people don't realize is Brighton have so many ballers. Like I noticed it when I was playing Football Manager. I noticed, like, obviously
research for the job in hand.
You have it. Honestly, when I tell you, like, there's so many other people that we don't really talk about because they haven't been emerged yet. You got Facundo Buonate as well, who's an Argentinian guy who wants to watch in Brighton. Got Yasin Sarri as well, Julian Andingra. Like, they've got Simon Andingra. Sorry, they've got so many of these young players where I'm thinking they haven't even been noticed yet, because you still have your players like Mitomas and stuff like that. But one person who I know is capable of scoring bangers has got to be Julio Enciso. Like, we saw that banger against City, and I'm sure he can definitely do it again. I'm sure we're going to see him score a lot of goals like that in the Premier League for years to come.
Definitely.
Before he gets signed by someone else.
It's true. for 60 million pounds somewhere else. It would be crazy. Sani, how about you? Who's going to score a banger next season that we were not expecting? We've got Ferguson, we've got Nsiko. Who are we going for?
God, I was going to go to Brighton again, and then I was going to do the Martin Tyler 3 of the best. He's made them pay, but no, that's a bit boring. So I think maybe Maddison. I've just got a feeling he's going to have a pretty decent season for Spurs, because Spurs are in a weird predicament with the whole Harry Kane thing, and then Postecoglou coming in, and I think Postecoglou is going to have a pretty good season, because right now for Spurs, there's no expectations for him, and a player like Maddison coming in with no expectations, and I think Kane will stay. That's going to be dangerous. And so I think Maddison, because he scores bangers anyway for Leicester. So watch this space.
And the two holding midfielders behind him, you've got Holberg, you've got Bissouma there. They'll literally be there just to protect Maddison in a free role, which will be just as good for him. And before I move on to my one, which is my final end one, isn't it funny how whenever an American speaks about football, you always think less of them because they're speaking about soccer. But when an Australian guy speaks to football, you accept it more than you do with an American, even though Australia isn't as good as the USA in terms of football. That's a crazy thought. Or is that just me? It might be me from the three of you looking at me in a blank manner, but that might just be
no. What it is, it's because America, they have other sports. They have their other main sports. So like you feel like they watch that more before they watch soccer. But obviously you got rugby, you got Aussie rules as well. But football is kind of a prominent sport in Australia as to in America.
USA.
You got your NFL, you got your NBA, you got hockey, you got baseball as well. Then you got football. So,
it's true. I'd say. Just to finish off from my one as well, Justin Kluivert has gone to Bournemouth, and I think Bournemouth, after having the second half of the season they had, crazy that they sacked Gary O'Neill and Sam. We were talking about it earlier this summer as well. It was a crazy sacking, but it looks like they're doing pretty well with their signings this far. They got Traore on a permanent deal, which I thought was really good. He really helped them at the end of last season. Like Tony said, we don't really speak about that in mainstream media, but Traore will be a good signing to watch. But I think Justin Kluivert hopefully now has a place where he can settle into football, not be another one of these football journeymen that we see all the time, which is really, really annoying. So hopefully he just stays here at Bournemouth, plays a good couple of years in the Premier League and has some fun, because he scored a couple of bangers back at Ajax, for Roma. For Valencia, didn't really do much last year. He scored 6 goals, but I don't remember a banging goal from him. If there was, I'll insert the clip here, which will be good fun. But yeah, looking forward to the Premier League season, which will be good fun. Right, everyone, I want to say thank you very much for joining me on this podcast today. It's been great to have you all on. Tony, as always, it's been great to have you on for our previews. What's your plan for the season coming up?
Oh, just a lot of working and hopefully Man United doing well, really. That's the plan.
If you need any help with cricket, just let me know. I'll happily give you some really good statements for the upcoming 100 and the T20 series with New Zealand coming up. So by all means, keep doing what you're doing. And it's really good to see how well you're doing so far as well, which would be great. Sani, how about you? You've got so much going on as well. And you recently had a new video come out about David Silva straight to camera, talking about some of the legends of football. Can we expect more of that from you this season?
Of course. I'm going to try my best. I mean, these ACA exams do take their toll, to be fair. So hopefully that will be done. Obviously get to a few more Man United games if that's possible as well. A few more of the sporting events as well. Going to the AJ White fight in 2 weeks' time, that'll be vlogged as well. So that'll
might see Tony at the cricket if he goes as well.
Who knows? That'll be interesting chat, seeing him at the cricket. Yeah. Obviously NBA is going to be starting soon as well. So does the NFL. So listen, sport is in a good place, especially after this weekend as well. After Crawford Spence, that was a great fight. So things are looking good, and I just can't wait to be on Friday Night Counter Attack again. So thanks for having me on again.
No, my pleasure. And Sam, it's good to have you back on. That's not just Chelsea focus, even though you keep the Chelsea focus really, really well and dignified, unlike some other Chelsea fans that we see online. But no, Sam, I'm looking forward to having you more on the podcast this season, obviously presenting your thoughts, which will be good fun.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you for having me on.
And I'll see you all soon. Everyone, thank you very much for listening. It's been great to have you. God bless you all and take care. See you later and goodbye.